Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Just woken up. I need a coffee, because I just do. It's going to be one of those days. It's going to be one of those days where I just need to give myself a buzz. Let's resolve that situation, shall we? Oh, much better. Oh, that is the good stuff. That should keep you awake, I hope. Until somebody sends me to a 4-hour opera. Anyway, that's not why you called. No, I wanted to talk about a couple of things, but first and foremost, the first thing I'll get out of the way was I'll put out a personal apology here and now, because I didn't realise that one Freedom Dad 73 was actually going live yesterday evening and was having me on as a guest. I heard it from someone, but I was like, is somebody winding me up? Is somebody trolling me? So, understandably, I was kind of erring on the side of caution. But as it got nearer 6:30, I was kind of like, what if there is some legitimacy to this? So, I decided to pop in, and it turns out it was indeed a co-stream with Freedom Dad. Went on for nearly 2 hours, and I had 2 strokes doing all this. And, sorry if that causes any offence to anyone, because I know there are some people who've probably had members of their family who have suffered from this, or maybe they have suffered from this themselves. But don't worry, it's just an inside joke. I am not trying to take the piss, as it were, out of stroke survivors or people who have actual strokes, because I can sympathise with you people. I really can. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was about the protest side of things. Because while I accept that I have been going off the deep end of this, I have been very, very emotional. There is something that the very person who got me started up, Super J, had said, basically saying that there was 1 million people during the Iraqi protest, the Iraqi war, which I think Tony the War Criminal Blair sent us over to. Do you know what that did? Nothing. Do you know what it went? It went in one ear and out the other. And I think we're seeing the exact same thing here with these protests we've got here. Now, that doesn't mean that stroke number one. That doesn't mean protest is not ineffective. But what I am saying is that if they see us singing the YMCA and singing songs, well, I might like to sing along a little bit, and I even did. The thing is, are we actually there to show the contempt we have to our establishment? Or are we there just to sing a little song and say everything will be alright and kumbaya and all that shit? Because the way I slice it, this isn't doing anything. That's the thing. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. These demonstrations, protests, whatever you want to call them, they have accomplished sweet fuck all, bluntly speaking. If they did accomplish something, the problems would be resolved by now. Or at bare minimum, we'd be well on our way to where we should be. But of course, we're not. We have seen, in fact, Keir the Traitor Starmer double down on Tommy Robinson when we went on to that protest on the 1st of February. They decided to isolate him even more. And Freedom Dad's mentioned it, and he has very valid points, that they want to push us towards civil war, violent revolution and all that, so that he can then impose martial law, so he can bring in the army. I have said this before, though, and I will say it here again. I don't think Keir the Traitor Starmer will have the whole army at his back. He might get maybe 20, maybe 25% of the army if he's lucky. Because remember what they said back when Boris Johnson was in power. They said that if there was a coup with him, then half the army would just bugger off and they would join the people. Now let me be clear. This is not me calling for violent revolution. This is not me calling for an overthrowing of the government. But what this is me saying is that we have an establishment that seems hell-bent on pushing us towards war. And they will do anything and everything they can to do so. So, as far as these protests are concerned, we need to, as Richard Inman said, we need to up the ante. We need to take this to the next level. And I even had a discussion with Freedom Dad over the way we go about it. I think we need to do something that will tell the establishment they're not messing around anymore. I think the first and foremost thing we need to do, stop with the songs. Cut the crap, bluntly speaking. Because if they see us singing Kumbaya and the YMCA and Sweet Caroline and all that, do you know what they're thinking? What a bunch of fucking idiots. That's what they're thinking. They're not thinking, those guys out there, they're dead serious. We should listen to them. No, they're not thinking that at all. They see us about as much threat as a fly on a window. They don't even look at us. They just do everything they can to ignore us and plod on. So what do? Well, first and foremost, and Bricklayer has said this as well, those speeches, pure circus. We need speeches that inspire. We need speeches that tell everyone we will not put up with this any longer. We need speeches that say we are not alone and that you will have the support of us if you need us. That we will protect each other. We need speeches that will galvanize a nation, not showcase exactly why they ignore us. Here's the thing. If you put on a good speech, people will listen to you and admire you. If you put on a clown show, people will laugh at you. So at this point, it is a matter of we need to show them how serious we are. We need to show them that we know our shit, that we've had enough, and that we will not tolerate this dictatorship. Dictatorship. Or maybe I was right first time. And that we will reclaim this country and we will kick these traitors out of Parliament if they do not comply with the will of the British people. I don't think they want us to be out there in mass protests. I don't think they want us to put out the message out there to all those people who are still fast asleep. Well, I'll tell them to get a fucking alarm clock then, won't I? Anyway, they don't want us to wake up the 90%. That's the 4% trying to stop us. We have to make sure that those people take a big dose of the red pill and swallow it. Because the cold, bitter truth is, our lives are about to get a whole lot worse if we don't take out the trash, metaphorically speaking. If we don't remove Keir the traitor Starmer, if we don't remove Islam, the ideology, from our country, if we do not remove the illegal immigrants that have come over, or any foreign criminals who have committed any crime whatsoever within the first, I'd say, 3 years of being here, we don't do something about them, this country will fall. It's that simple. If we don't do something about this situation, we can't be surprised if England falls. Because right now, with the replacement of cultures, the lack of procreation on our side, and I'll admit I should be having a bloody part of this, quite frankly, but I think I may have made it clear a few times why I haven't. But anybody who hasn't heard, basically I've always had this mentality of I probably wouldn't be a good dad. And there are probably some things that I would need to iron out for sure. I think the first and foremost would be this mouth of mine, which is filthier than a sewer in Manhattan. But I digress. There are a number of things as far as the adulthood is concerned and being a parent is concerned that I feel like I'm worried about. On top of that, there's also the situation right now, like, I can barely keep myself together. But if I were to bring a child into the world and have to take care of them as well, then I'll really have a problem. And that's just the first of it. Then there's also the contract, which says I'm not allowed to have anyone else living with me. I'm not allowed pets and all that shit. So if I end up having a child, I'm probably going to end up being rehoused. Or I might be kicked out of this house and have no home. So make of that what you will. That's the thing. It isn't just as simple as, oh, I can go out, knock a woman up and have a child. And it will never be like that, quite frankly. Never ever think that it's going to be like that. But what I can say is that we need people who are capable of having children and raising children the correct way, who are patriotic and passionate about their country, and we need to teach them never be ashamed of who you are. We need numbers. And on top of all this, we need organisation as well. Because the way I look at it, what's the one thing the left has, to be devil's advocate here, to the left wing, that I despise with a passion? What's the one thing that the left wing has over us? They're organised. When shit goes down, they are prepared to mobilise. If shit goes down with us, we're basically throwing everything up in the air and we're panicking. We're like, what's going on? Because we're not organised. It's that simple. I mean, sure, we get organised. I guess that's why they tell us well in advance. Make your plans. But at the end of the day, the left are far more organised than us. They're far more disciplined. And we need to do something about that. We need to beat the left wing at their own game, quite frankly. They like to libelously slander us. They like to say, oh, you see him, he's far-right, racist, football hooligan, thug, and part of the EDL, and blah, blah, blah. But when the shoe is on the other foot, they don't like that. We need to turn the tables here and put the pressure on them. We need to make sure that we expose everything that the left wing and this treacherous establishment is doing. Especially with Keir the traitor, stroke number 2, Keir the traitor Starmer of the Nonce Party, Labour Party, or maybe I was right first time again. We need to expose all of them for their actions. We need to expose them for all the deceit, the dishonesty, the hypocritical double standards. And of course, obviously the blatant two-tier policing and justice in here. Which, of course, because I say that, makes me far right, apparently. But as far as Freedom Day is concerned, we discussed Keir the traitor Starmer, we discussed the immigration, we discussed Islam, we discussed what do we do as far as the protest is concerned. We discussed these people going around with bloody machetes everywhere, like we're living in a war zone. And it's ironic, because Keir the traitor Starmer is pushing for civil war, and yet we have people who are going out basically in gang wars or just plain wars themselves, armed to the teeth with machetes, ready to go up and hack and slash and stab and whatever. Like, it's scary. There was a hell of a lot we went on about. As I said, we were live for nearly 2 hours on that day. And had I have known that that was going to be the case, I would have put a link to Freedom Dad's thing in the... I would have put it out there in the description of a post. But what I will be doing is I'll be putting it in the link in the description below, so you can see the whole of the live stream for yourself. Bear in mind, it is nearly 2 hours long, but I definitely had a good time with Freedom Dad, let me tell you. Certainly freed me up for a little bit, that's for sure. And yeah, I did say in the past, as far as Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe, that I threw down the gauntlet and say, can we do this peacefully? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I was impulsive. Maybe I was a little blasé. Who knows? But what I can say for certain is I do think we're taking this way too slow. I do think we're still going 20 to 30 miles an hour rather than going at 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. Like, we need our foot on the gas right now, because if we don't, there is a huge bloody roadblock that we're going to smash right into because they're trying to put it in front of us. We need to become more organised and more robust. And we need to be, obviously, within the confines of the law. We need to do everything by the book. That is the way I look at it. But I do think, to play devil's advocate to that, we probably are heading towards civil war. Quite frankly, I am still of that belief. I do think that we're heading towards civil war, as much as some of us don't want it. I have never wanted it. I do think, unfortunately, that this country has gone so far, it has sunken so low, that effectively there aren't many options left as far as pulling Britain back up from the ground. That's the way I look at it. Like, people will have a hard time getting me off the ground if I was on the fucking floor. So you can imagine what Britain's going to be like. But in all seriousness, I don't want to be pessimistic, because that's not my style. I prefer to be more of a realist than an optimist or a pessimist. Glass half full, glass half empty, mug's full of shit. That's the way I look at it. Anyway, my point is, we are heading towards very, very dark times, whether we want it or not. And it is going to take, quite frankly, nothing short of a miracle to reclaim this country for ourselves. A Christian country. I'm not even a Christian. And I care for these Christians, quite frankly. Unfortunately, though, we have third world barbarians coming over here, bringing their violent, hateful ideologues with them to our streets, and they have basically taken over because Britain is a soft touch. Britain are as hard as wilting daisies. There is no substance to any of these people. Why do you think when Keir the traitor Starmer says things that I don't take him seriously when he makes these threats? Although there are some that I do. I'll tell you why. It's because the man's got no substance. The man hasn't got a pair of balls. Hell, he doesn't even have a single bollock in him, quite frankly. Much better. He is a man who would much rather work for Davos than Westminster. He's a man who has said he will do all he can to protect the Muslim community. And what we have right now is we don't have one cohesive community that all works together to achieve the same goal. What we have now is that same community has splintered into various different communities, where we have, for example, you've got Christians in one area, you've got the rich in another, you've got a poor, or the poor in the third area, and then you've got these Muslim no-go zones, Islamic no-go zones. And here's the problem, and this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of things. As far as these no-go zones are concerned, this is where you need to pay attention. If Islam is so insistent on having these no-go zones, and the police are not willing to robustly deal with these no-go zones, we have a very, very big problem. Because think about it. What happens? I'm going to use something as an example. Yes, I'm using gravy granules. Fucking sue me. Anyway, think of this. Think of it like with this removed, this whole labelling here. Think of this label removed off of this tin, whatever you want to call it. And this is the Islamic no-go zone. If somebody isn't going to come along and take the lid off and see what's inside, what the hell is going on in there? That is the numero uno question we need to be asking. If they won't allow us into these effectively Sharia law no-go zones, what are they hiding? Sobering, isn't it? The idea that these no-go zones effectively exist. Hell, Angela Rayner's doing everything she can to set up an Islamophobia council. Why would she do that? Why would Labour go out of their way to help a 5th century death cult, because that's what they are, a 5th century death cult that worships war, conquering and domination over all other people? Why would she want to help them when the Islamic scumbags consider people like Keir the traitor Starmer to be useful idiots? But as said, the most important question is, if we're not allowed in these zones, what are they hiding? Because right now, if you're not going into those areas, if you're not going in there and saying, right, this no-go bullshit stops right now. If you're not going that, do you know what happens? That no-go zone basically becomes a camp for training extremist soldiers. It becomes a place where Islam can effectively read from their book and teach and preach their hatred in this community. And then they're able to seep it into all the other communities and then turn them into no-go zones. And then all of a sudden, it's not just one section of a town, it's the entire fucking town. That's scary, isn't it? It fucking scares me. Think what could happen in my town of Norwich. Instead of it all just being Christian churches and being able to practice your religion and what have you, and be able to do whatever you wish, all of a sudden, in comes Islam. And you sometimes, Freedom Dad pointed this out, you see sometimes these adverts with these women in bikinis, and then you see some Islamic person come along and they spray paint it and they're extremely disgusted with it. Like, this is what we've imported, quite frankly. We have imported barbarians of their third world shitholes who basically do not want to integrate with our society. They want to subjugate our societies and make this whole country Islamic. That's the cold, bitter truth on it. And when I mentioned Islamophobia earlier, bear in mind, Islamophobia is a made-up word. Because Islam is a religion, and a phobia is supposed to represent an irrational fear. But what the people have seen, as far as Islam is concerned, it's not giving them an irrational fear. When they're seeing their children, the women, men, when they're seeing all of these people getting violated, when they're being butchered, when they're being told what they can and can't do, that's not irrational fear. More to the point, when they're seeing 90% of the suspects on the terror watch list are Islamic, I don't think that's an irrational fear of Islam. That is a very fucking rational fear of Islam, quite frankly. Do you see that many Christians on that terror watch list? Do you see that many Hindus on that terror watch list? Do you see as many Buddhists on that terror watch list? Do you see as many white people on that terror watch list? Do you see that many black people on that terror watch list? It could go on. It is not irrational to be afraid of a very dangerous death cult that effectively wants to conquer the world and wants to do it by hook or by crook, or in this case, by book or by hook. That's the way I slice it. They consider us kafar, unbelievers, and people who basically need to be offed. They consider us easy meat. They consider us as basically people who are lower than them. And here's the thing, because I didn't speak about this on Freedom Dad's channel because I think we were too focused on the other things. But there's a lot of talk from the left about white superiority. Do you see that many people coming out as basically white supremacists? Do you see that many people coming out and saying, I am a white supremacist and I believe my race is superior to yours? No, you don't. There are some nutters who do that, and I condemn them, because no race should be superior over one or the other. It shouldn't matter whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're yellow, pink, silver, blue, or green, or fucking brown. The way I slice it, colour is on the outside. Beauty can go right to the bone. Your principles go right to the bone. Your very character is what determines you. And you need to be the better man or woman and say, we reject this. However, with Islam, they do see themselves as superior. Think about it. They're always preaching how they need to go and wage jihad on the West. They always preach about how they need to slay the unbelievers. Through those actions alone, would you not say that Islams are basically, these people that are going around stabbing, slashing, violating our kids and all that, would it be fair to say these people are Islamic supremacists? Flip the question back on them. And let's see how the left wing like it. Because I guarantee you, as soon as you start asking that shit, they're going to be panicking. They're going to be wetting their knickers. They'll be grabbing their lattes. They'll be chugging it like you wouldn't believe. Because they talk about all this white supremacy. But if you talk about Islam, their arguments just go up in smoke. Just like that. because they know full well who the real threats are, and they are, in some sense, complicit in the importation of the people who want to turn this country into a third world shithole. The bottom line is we need to be dealing with this death cult, and we need to deal with it robustly. We need to, metaphorically speaking, take out the trash. And also, the other thing that needs to be done, as far as all this is concerned, is we need to make sure that we're dealing with the other side of this as well. Any extremists on our end, we cast out into the light. We expose them. We show them. Because here's the thing. Islam, they will almost never do this. You might have a few people within Muslims that do this. And we must give respect to them. Like, take a look at Raja Miah, who is going out of his way to expose the Labour councillors. Take a look at the people who go up on stage. And I did say that there were circuses and the speeches didn't really mean much. But there were Muslims who had the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to be able to get up on that stage and showcase the problems with Islam and this country. But the other thing we need to do, we need to deal with the immigration issue as well. And I've already mentioned many times how we deal with that shit. If these people, like, the argument I had with, well, it wasn't even an argument to be fair, but the moment we had with each other, Freedom Dad and I, about immigration was, I brought up the smuggling gangs. Freedom Dad thinks there aren't any smuggling gangs. Because if these people want to come over, they can just grab a boat and come along. And I never really thought of it like that. But when you think about it more and more, it does make sense. He keeps talking about smashing the gangs. What gangs? Hell, it doesn't even need to be a gang. And it begs the question, are there really any people smuggling gangs? Or are these people coming over of their own volition because they want a slice of Benefits Britain? The slice of the pie, as it were. Pie. Anyway, they want a slice of Benefits Britain. And can you blame them? The amount of fucking benefits we give them? We treat them like bloody kings and queens. Although it's mostly kings, because it's mostly males that come over. Fighting age males from the Middle East or wherever, who basically want to live the life of luxury. And as I've said before, you can't wholly blame them because they're just seeking a better life, to play devil's advocate here. But the one way you deal with this is you take away the incentives. If we can't turn the boats back, let's say, if we're unable to put a few bullets in the dinghies, not the people, let me be clear. I don't want to see needless killing. But if we're not putting bullet holes in the dinghies to sink them, and then taking them straight back over the border or back to their country of origin, take away the incentives. If I was the Prime Minister, I think that would be priority one on my list, quite frankly. Because as soon as you take away the incentives, they've got next to no reason to come over here. And then it will showcase, if the numbers go down of the people coming over, a lot of these people will be here for one of two things. They'll either be looking to invade, or they'll be looking for war. That's the cold, bitter truth. But if we take away the incentives, we will see the number of people attempting crossings drop. Just like that. Because they will have no reason to come over here, because we won't be offering them. The first thing I would have said, if I was Prime Minister, I would immediately initiate an executive order. All benefits for new entries, new arrivals, legal or not, you cannot claim benefits for at least 2 or 3 years. That's the way I'd look at it. You cannot claim benefits for 2 to 3 years, and you basically have to pay in taxes and into the society and integrate with our society before you can be eligible for these benefits. As soon as you do that, all this stops. They won't have a reason to come over because they will basically lose out on the very things that they're after, quite frankly. So those are my thoughts right now. So obviously, I'll be linking in the description below, as I've said, the video to Freedom Dad's live stream, where we had a good old discussion for nearly 2 hours about various topics, if you want to take a look at that. Anybody who hasn't subscribed to Freedom Dad, please do so. Let's help this guy out, because he's helped me out a little bit here. So it's only fair I return the favour, because that's what good men do. And believe you me, there's a few good men left in this world. Very few. But that is probably me waffling on at this point. Go and give him some support, show him some love, and remember, we may be on the right side or even the centre of politics, but we're all in this together. Just like Keir the traitor Starmer and his establishment are all in it together. Just like those no-go zones, the Sharia law cunts, the Islamic scumbags, they're all in it together. We must come together and fight this head on. We mustn't pussyfoot around anymore. And we must stop with the celebrations and the singing. Because every single time we do that, they don't look at us as a serious protest. They look at us as a circus. The real circus, though, is in the houses of treachery. Sorry, Parliament. Or again, maybe I was right first time. And we need to show them, these clowns in Parliament, that we, the British people, have had enough. And the only way we're going to do that is by showcasing how serious we are. No more songs, no more nonsense, no more circus acts. This is the point where we need to show them just how disgusted we are with them. We need to bring facts, we need to bring information, we need to bring red pills. We need to wake the people up. Because if we do not wake these people up from their slumber, we will never reclaim the country that is quite rightly ours.